So let me get started. So the Gemara says, "Ahu arba de tachanta to osi l'sicha." So there was a boatload of a certain fish, a tachanta, which is I believe, is the same type of fish that we were dealing with earlier, the chile. So it came to Sichra. Nofak Rav Huna bar Chinana. Rav Huna bar Chinana went out. The chozabei kalpe. He saw on its scales the sharia and he permitted it. Amalei Rava. Rava said, "Umi ika deshari ki agavna ba'asri deshchichi kalpe." Is it permitted in such a scenario in a place where scales are common? Meaning, Rava said that you're right that these things could be kosher fish, but since it's a place where there are many, many kosher fish around, so it could be that some scales from a kosher fish attached itself, and it's really just it's being deceptive, and it's not really a kosher fish. It just looks that way based on the scales that floated onto it from the kosher fish that are around it. So Rava felt that it's forbidden to eat. Nafak Shipuri de Rava Ba'asar. The students of Rava, the people who represent Rava, they went out Ba'asar and they forbade it. They said it can't be eaten. Shipuri Rav Huna bar Chinna B'shari. But the people who support Rav Huna bar Chinna, they went out and permitted it. They said this fish is fine to eat. Like you said, look, there are scales. Omar Rav Yirmiyah mi Difti. Rav Yirmiyah from Difti said, L'didi Omar li Rav Papi. Rav Papi said to me, Kisha Rav Huna bar Chinna. When did Rav Huna bar Chinna permit? When did he permit eating this fish? The tzira. That's only the fish brine. Avabagufon lo. But the actual goof of the fish, the actual body of the fish, that can't be eaten. This is what we really ended off discussing yesterday, which is that when it comes to eating the fish brine, that's a little bit more lenient. So even if you have something which is most probably kosher, it looks like it has scales, there's a small concern it might really be deceptive. But when it comes to the fish brine, that's more lenient because even if there is like some non-kosher fish mixed in there, it becomes batal. But as opposed to the actual goof of the fish itself, the body of the fish itself, that doesn't become batal, and therefore you have to be 100% sure that it would be kosher. So Rav Yirmiyah is saying that Rav Papi told me that when Rav Huna bar Chinna permitted, and he said that this fish, this sachanta fish, was fine, even though there's a place where kosher fish are around. So that's only the fish brine, but the actual body of the fish that can't be eaten. Amar Rav Ashi l'didi Amar li Rav Papa Kishar Rav Huna bar Chinna afilu begufa. Rav Papa told me that when Rav Huna bar Chinna permitted this fish, this sachanta fish, he permitted afilu begufan. He permitted even eating the actual fish. Vano lo meisar esreno d'karmeli Rav Papa. I can't forbid it because Rav Papa told me that it's fine. Lo mishra sharino, I can't permit it. So Omar Rav Yehuda mishmei ula, because Rav Yehuda in the name of Ula said machlokas l'tabel b'tzira. The machlokas, the dispute is only regarding dipping it in the fish brine. Aval begufan, but the actual body of the fish, derei kol achi a rosh v'shedra nikar shel kol echad ve'echad. That everyone holds, it has to be that the head and the spine of each one are recognizable. Meaning, yesterday there was a machlokas recorded in the Gemara about when you have a fish that when you have a whole bunch of fish together and they're all the same type, that doesn't have to be that you have. We said that the siman, the sign is to know for the Torah Shena Trufa, the Torah which is not chopped. We said the sign is that you could recognize the head and the spine of each one. Then the Gemara was discussing is that it doesn't have to be that you have to literally see every single one and note it and actually recognize that's the head and spine of a kosher fish. Or no, as long as you recognize one of them, then they're all good to go. The whole batch is good. So that's really where this discussion comes into the picture a lot about whether we permit it just in regards to fish brine or we permit the goof itself. Like before I was explaining that when it comes to the fish brine, so if you have this whole group of fish, and you already checked that one, and it had the kosher simanim, that you were able to recognize they had the spine that it was kosher. So even if there is one or two that are mixed in that are not kosher, it would end up becoming bottle in the whole mixture. If you the actual fish themselves, so that's not bottle, because that's an entire item. It won't be bottle. So therefore that's why the Gemara is discussing whether this machlokas extends itself even to the actual goat. Some people say that no, in terms of eating the actual fish, everyone says that that's a problem. You can't do it unless you check every single one and you recognize each one to be kosher. Whereas other people say no, the machlokas is even in terms of the goat. So Rav Ashi saying is that Rav Papa told me that the machlokas is only in terms of the goat. But that Rav Huna Bar China, he permitted it even by the goat. But Rav Yehuda Shmei Ula said that no, the machlokas is only in terms of dipping in the fish brine. The actual goof everyone holds is usher. So he says I can't permit it because of Rav Yehuda, but I also can't forbid it because Rav Papa told me that he permitted it even by the goof, even by the body of the fish itself. So therefore he can't go either way. He can't pass either way. Which I guess he'd be machmir, he'd get, but not in the way of saying that for sure is the halacha. Morning. We're up to Yosef Rav Chinana on Mem Aleph on 48. Yosef Rav Chinana. It's like in my Gemara, it's 2 wide lines down. It's like on the bottom third of the page.
Okay.
Yeah. Yosef Rav Chinana bar Idi Kamed Rav Ada bar Ava. Yosef Kamar. Rav Chinana bar Idi was sitting in front of Rav Ada bar Ava, and he was sitting and saying, "Ovi kochavim shevi areibam leachovios." Let's say a non-Jew brings a whole trough full of barrels of fish brine. But Nim says kilbis v'achas man. He found a kilbis fish in one of them. Now we discussed yesterday that a kilbis fish is a sign that this fish brine is from a kosher fish. Because if it's from a non-kosher fish, it wouldn't have a kilbis in there. The kilbis only thrives in the fish brine of kosher fish. So if you find in one of them, so if psuchos, if they're all open, kula mutaros, they're all mutter, because we say that if they're open ones, so then we say 1 second. We say that the same way it's in this one, they really were in all of them, but I don't see them now. Okay, fine, but it must be that they jumped out. But we assume the same way it was in this one, it was in all of them. But stumos, if they were closed, himutaros, that one is mutter, that one is permitted to eat. Kulan source, but the rest of them are forbidden to eat. Because just because it's in this one, you know it's in the other ones. The other ones are sealed, and therefore they'll be forbidden. Now, in terms of this kilbis, and when they're all open, they're all mutter. So at first glance, there seems to be a contradiction with what we said yesterday. That yesterday we said that if you have an open barrel, that you would need 2 kilbis fish to identify the fact that it's kosher. Because it could be that if you just see one, it could be that it just fell in there. You don't know that it was natural to it. Once you see 2, then you know it's no longer a coincidence. So over here, though, it seems to be mashma. It seems to imply that even one's enough. So Tosa is actually bothered by that question. And Tosa says, when it says nimtzeis kilbis, when it says that you found a kilbis, that means that you found kilbis in a way that makes it kosher, which is 2. So that would be good to be miyashev and fit the earlier Gemara with this Gemara. But anyway, so fine. The halacha that's being said is if they're all open, so even if you find the kilbis fish in one of them, they're all permitted. If they're closed, then only the one that is found in is mutter, and the rest of them are also, you don't know if it's from a kosher fish or not kosher fish. Amar lachem min halacha. Where do you know this one? So he said that Amar le mitlasa kroi from 3 psukim. Now, this doesn't literally mean psukim, but he says Shmiya li me Rav u'Shmuel Rav Yochanan. I heard this from Rav, Shmuel, Rav Yochanan. Now, Rashi explains that what he's conveying is that I heard this from 3 psukim. That I heard this from 3 great rabbis that they're so reliable that it's like relying on the pasuk itself. That's what he's saying. I'm relying on 3 psukim. They're big rabbis, not psukim, but they're reliable just like psukim, and that's Rav, Shmuel, and Rav Yochanan. Okay, let's go further. Amar Rav Bruna. Amar Rav. Rav Bruna is in the name of Rav. Kirvei dogim v'ubaron. The innards of fish and their eggs. Aini kochan elamah mumcha. They can only be bought from someone who's an expert, someone who's able to identify for you that it came from a kosher fish. But if it's not from an expert, we're afraid that's really from a non-kosher fish. Rami le ula Rab Dostai dimin that Rav Ula asked to Rabbi Dostai ben Biri, Midika Amar Rab Kirve Dogamu Boron. The fact Rab says that the innards of fish and their eggs Ini Kachin Lama Munka, they can only be bought from an expert, Mechalal. That implies the dog tame islay ubar. That implies that a non-kosher fish has eggs, because if we're afraid and we're saying that they have to be bought from an expert, if they're not bought from an expert, then you wouldn't be allowed to eat it. So that means is that we're afraid that it got mixed up with the eggs of a non-kosher fish, and that means that that non-kosher fish have eggs. But Ramini has a contradiction. Dog tame mashritz, a non-kosher fish is mashritz, that it grows children in its stomach, whereas dog tar matal beitzim. But a kosher fish, that lays eggs. So it seems that only kosher fish lay eggs. But non-kosher fish, they develop their children inside of them. So there seems to be a contradiction with Rab's statement. So Rab Dostai said, Sami Mikanu Baron, okay, you're right. That brisa is a contradiction with what we were saying. And therefore remove from here Ubaron, remove from here the eggs. Don't put in Rab's statement. All Rab was talking about was the innards of fish. So Amarle Rab Zera is a lotus meat. Don't remove it. Rab really was talking about both. Tarvayu matile beitzim. Really, both of them lay eggs. Matile beitzim. They both do it. Elazem mashers mi b'chutz. Elazem mashers mi b'fnim. That one of them lays the eggs from the outside. That it lays the eggs outside of it, and then it grows. But a non-kosher fish, it lays eggs within it, and it gets completed within it. Now, but really, both of them have eggs. So therefore, Rab really could be saying that you need to identify the kosher fish, the eggs of a kosher fish, based on an expert, because the non-kosher fish really also have eggs. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the actual statement of Rab. That Rab said that you need an expert. So the Gemara says, "Lamali mumcha." Why do I need an expert? Livdok b'simanim. Just check the signs of it. Just checking to see if it has the proper signs should be enough. Why do you need an expert? The Tanya, as Torna Brisa, kisimonim beitzim kach simone dagim. Just like the signs of eggs are the signs of fish. So the Gemara is gonna, just in and of itself right now, we don't see anything yet. The Gemara is gonna take issue with this Brisa, and based on the way it's gonna take issue with it, it's gonna be able to ask this question. Which again, the Gemara's question is that on Rab is that it wants to prove that even without an expert, Rab's saying that you need an expert to identify that as a kosher fish. And the Gemara wants to ask that even without an expert, just checking the signs of it, the signs of the eggs, should be sufficient. So we have this brisa. This brisa says that kisimonim beitzim kachsimani dogim. That just like the signs of eggs are the signs of fish. So the Gemara takes issue with this and says, simoni dogim sagadayta. You think that it means the signs of fish? But simoni dogim snap berikaskesas ksibu. But we know the signs of fish. The Torah says if it has fins and scales, that's what makes a fish kosher. It's not like the signs of eggs, the signs that determine whether an egg is kosher. That's not what determines whether a fish is kosher. Whether a fish is kosher is determined by its fins and scales. Ella, rather, what the brisa must mean is kisimani beitzim kachsimani ubari dog. That just like the signs of eggs are the signs of eggs of fish. That just like the signs of regular eggs, that eggs that come from chickens or birds, those are going to be the same signs for eggs of fish. And what are these signs that we're talking about? So kol shekoderes bo'agol gelas. Anything that it narrows, it becomes sharp, and is also round. So what does that mean? So the Gemara goes further, and it says that, I'm sorry, actually, the Gemara is actually not explaining this. What this means is that based on Rashi says is that it's round on the side, like the sides are round, but at the top it narrows to the point where it gets sharp. And the Gemara gives another symbol is that Rosha Echad Kad, Rosha Echad Chad. That if one side is one, either the top or the bottom is rounded, and one head of it is sharp, So tahora, that's a kosher egg. But beis roshei achadin, if both heads are sharp, ubeis roshei achadin, or both ends are rounded, tmeah, that will be a non-kosher egg. So I haven't studied eggs too much, but it seems like for an egg to be kosher, it has to be that one that the two heads of it are not identical to each other. One is more narrow, one's sharper, whereas one is rounder. That's what a kosher egg looks like. But as opposed to a non-kosher egg would be if both are identical. They're either both sharper or they're both rounder. They're both rounded. If the egg yolk is on the outside and egg white is on the inside, that's non-kosher. But if the egg white is on the outside, and the egg yolk is on the inside, that's kosher. If they're mixed together, the egg white and the egg yolk are mixed together, zui be'atz hasheretz. This is the egg of a sheretz, of some sort of creepy, crawly animal. So there's certain ones that lay eggs. So but what we're trying to prove overall from this is that we have a brisa. The brisa is saying is that there are signs that you can identify the eggs of fish with to determine whether it's kosher. Just like the signs of regular eggs, which means that it's like we're saying that it's rounded on the sides and it narrows on top, and one end is sharp and one end is rounded, and also about the egg white being on the outside and the egg yolk being on the inside. So the brisa is saying is that so too are the signs for eggs of fish. So why do you need an expert? Rav implies that you need an expert to identify whether it's kosher or not. Why do you need an expert? Even without an expert, you should be able to identify based on the symbols, based on the signs. That's what we see in this brisa, that there are signs. So Amar Rava answers, Kishini Mochu, when they melted, when they mixed together, when the signs are no longer identifiable. That's when Rab said that we need an expert. But Rab agrees. If it's whole, you really could identify it based on the symbols of whether it's kosher or not. But if it's dissolved, once it's dissolved, then you would need an expert. And that's what Rab is talking about. That's where you would need that. Okay. Now the Gemara goes further. The Gemara says, Rabbi Dostoi, Dimin Beirei, according to Rabbi Dostoi, Dimin Beirei, Damar Sami Mikanu Baron, he said, remove from Rav's statement the eggs, because he was bothered by that we had this brisa which said that non-kosher fish don't have eggs. Now, Rab Zera, he made it both be true. He said that non-kosher fish also have eggs, but it just is in a different way. It's in a different method. Rab Dosai and Barry said, okay, we see this brisa that says that non-kosher fish don't have eggs. It must be Rab wasn't talking about eggs. But according to him, who said that to remove it, so Tanya, now we're on 40b, we just turn the page. But Tanya, but it's telling a brisa, Kisimani Beitzin, Kachsimani Bari Dogin. That just like the signs of eggs are the signs of fish eggs, like we said before. So it doesn't even know that this brisa is clearly talking about and working with the fact that there's non-kosher fish eggs also, because this brisa is saying that there are certain symbols and signs that identify the eggs of a kosher fish. And if we're trying to identify a kosher fish, that means that non-kosher fish have eggs as well. So how could he say that? How could he take it to that extreme, take that the first brisa to that extreme, and assume that it must be non-kosher fish don't have eggs? So the Gemara responds. The Gemara says, "Lab tirutze mitartzisla." Did you not answer it up already? Meaning, this is not the literal brisa like we had before. Then the original reading of the brisa didn't say simane ubore dugin. Never said the symbols of the eggs of fish. It really just said kisimane beitzim, like this, the symbols of eggs. Kachsimane dugin. Those are the symbols of fish. You had a question that, okay, that doesn't make any sense, that those are the symbols of fish, because we know the symbols of fish. Torah says fins and scales. So you decide, okay, fine, we have to change it. We have to make it, we have to say it's really something else. But you already changed this brisa. So once you change the brisa, so I'll change it too. So Torah Taki, I'll change it to in a different way. That it's not referring to the eggs of fish, rather kachsimani kirve dog. When it says kisimani beitzim just like are the symbols of eggs are the simone dogim, are the symbols of fish. That's not referring to the eggs of fish, but rather it's referring to the innards of fish. That's what the Bryce is referring to. But really, there's no need to identify eggs of fish, because if it's eggs of fish, by definition, it's kosher, because we have the first brisa. The first brisa said that non-kosher fish don't have eggs, and we're not willing to. Rab Dostoi Mimbere is not willing to say like Rab Zera that there's really two different types of laying eggs. Therefore, he feels that non-kosher fish don't have eggs at all, and therefore he's saying that, listen, when it says simani dogim, that can't be what it's referring to. It must be referring to the signs of innards of fish. So the Gemara says, 1 second, but if the Bryce is talking about innards of fish, where do you find by the symbols of innards of fish that there's one side is narrow and one side is rounded? It's not, innards of fish are not eggs. How could you say that it has the same symbols as eggs? Good morning. We're on 40b and near the top. So the Gemara says mishkachasla b'shilfucha. It could be found by shilfucha. So I'm unclear a little bit exactly what this is. Rashi says it's some part of the fish, inner of the fish that's filled with air. I don't know what part of the fish it is. I don't know, maybe you can help me out. But
they're talking about the bladder, the air bladder.
Okay, so the air bladder of the fish, that part of the innards, that could be identified by being one side narrow and one side rounded, just like eggs. And that's really what it's referring to. But really, Rav Dostoi been very sticking to his guns that that non-kosher fish don't have the eggs. Okay. We're starting a new thing. So we're by Im Ein Sham Mumcha. It's like right at the beginning of 40b. Yeah. If you're looking at the Mishnah 40b, when you get up to it, so the Gemara says, "Im Ein Sham Mumcha Mai." There's no expert. Then what's the halacha? But Rav had said, when it comes to the innards of fish and their eggs, that you need to identify it based on an expert. Let's say you don't have an expert. What's the halacha? Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kiman da Amar ani melachtim mutar." If the person who's selling it says that I myself salted it, now it has to be a Jew, but for him to be reliable. In general, we say that we have Eid Echad Neman B'Yisurin. That's the rule that if somebody is, when in general you need 2 witnesses, but for Isser, 1 witness is sufficient. So let's say when it comes to kashrus, if you have 1 witness, one Jew that tells you something, you can rely on him. That's how you could eat someone else's food, right? Because you can eat someone else's food because that Jew tells you that it's permitted to eat. So to here, if the Jew tells you that I salted it, and I made it from scratch, I saw that they're kosher, and I took out the innards from it, because right now when the innards are in front of you, you can't identify whether it's a kosher fish or not kosher fish. But the Jew says that I did the whole process starting from scratch, and I salted it, and I saw that it was kosher. That's mutter. Then you won't need an expert. That's not enough. He has to actually show you the actual fish. He has to show you the fish. Say, these are the fish that I salted. These are the fish that the innards are from, and here the innards are right in front of you, and show you the fact that they're kosher. But just saying that I salted is not enough, because even we don't think that he's lying. We just think that he's not an expert, and we think that maybe even though he salted it, he didn't identify it properly, and therefore Rav Nachman feels it's not enough for him to just to trust him when he says I salted it, but rather he has to show you the fish himself. Rav Yehuda Haskind for Ada Daila. Rashi explains that a Daila is somebody who he's hired out to make meals for people. So he asking for him came into Amrani Malachte Mutar, that if the Jew says I salted it, then it is permitted. That's enough to rely on him. That we assume that if he says I made it from scratch and he saw that I saw it was kosher, that's good enough to rely on it. So therefore, halacha l'maisa, that's what comes out. That when it comes to these innards of fish, the person says, if it's reliable Jew, and he says he's not an expert in fish, but he says, I made from scratch, I saw his kosher, that is permitted. Okay, now we're going to discuss the next part of the Mishnah. So the Mishnah was listing, the Mishnah we saw yesterday was listing things which are from a non-Jew, which are not only mutter and benefit, but are mutter to eat. So the next thing in the Mishnah was olo shel chiltis, which is a leaf of the chiltis plant. Now, the Mishnah beforehand that said that when you have the grains of the chiltis, that can't be eaten because we're afraid that it was chopped up with the knife of a non-Jew. And if it was chopped up with the knife of a non-Jew, that would put flavor from the knife into the chiltis because the chiltis is very sharp. And even though we paskin that nosin tam lefgam, if flavor goes in to a food from a non-kosher vessel, but it's for its detriment, that's mutter. And we say that anytime something is not a ben yomo, anytime that a vessel or a knife or anything from a non-Jew wasn't used that day for non-kosher food, it would be nosin tam lefgam. Even so, if something's sharp, then it draws in the flavor in a good way. And chiltis is very sharp. But if this Mishnah is saying that if it's a whole leaf, so a leaf of chiltis, then that's fine. So Gemara says, Pshita, that's obvious. What's there to be concerned about? It's the whole leaf. So the Gemara says, Lo nitzvachah, it's needed for the grains within it. You maybe say we should be concerned. Maybe the guy brought and mixed with this leaf some grains that he had chopped from beforehand. And if he chopped it, that would be a problem, like we said in the previous Mishnah, because it absorbs the flavor from the non-kosher knife. Kamash malon. So the Mishnah comes and tells us and teaches us this that it fell off this leaf. I mean, we're not concerned about that a guy mixed in outside seeds, outside grains, and rather we say that everything came off this leaf that's in front of us, and therefore is kosher because a knife was not used. And that's what the Mishnah is coming to teach us. Okay, the next thing in the Mishnah, the next thing to listen to the Mishnah, which was mutter to eat, was zeise gluskos hamugulgolen, which means that you have these cakes of olives, which the juice starts being pressed out of it, the olive oil, the oil starts coming out of it. So Gemara says, Pshita, this is obvious. What's there to be concerned about? The olives are fine. What's the deal over here? So Gemara said, what's the Mishnah trying to tell me? So Gemara says, Lo nitzrucha afagav de rafi tuva. It's needed for a case where it's very soft. Mao to say machama ramabu. You might have said if it's so soft, the only way it got to the point of being this soft is if you poured wine into it. Kamash malon hani machmas mishcho de rafi. These became so soft only because of the oil. That you might have been concerned they poured wine into it, and that's how it got to this state of being so soft. And if there was wine in it, then it would be forbidden because wine in a non-Jew is forbidden. So therefore, the Mishnah is coming telling me that no, that even in this very soft state, then it would still be permitted because we just say that the oil is what made it become so soft. But we're about to discuss the next part of the Mishnah, that in the Mishnah had quoted Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said that hashlochin, that if it's shlochin, then asurin, then it's forbidden. So then the Gemara is going to explain what this means. So the Gemara says hiki dami shlochin. At what state in the point of it being of these olives is it considered shlochin? So Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina said kosher ozo biyado, and any time that you hold it, he can hold it in his hand. The guy nasu nishmetas, and the pit just slips out. It's that soft. The seed just slips out. That's extremely soft. And Rabbi Yossi feels if it got to that stage, that's not normal. Just in of itself, that wouldn't happen. And that's indication of the fact that the non-Jew really mixed in wine. And therefore, Rabbi Yossi feels that would be forbidden. Okay. The next part of the Mishnah, the next case in the Mishnah was that if you have grasshoppers that from a non-Jew, if it was from the slula, which Rashi explained that the slula means that it's from the basket in front of the person selling it in the marketplace, so then that would be usher. Because we're afraid that he put a little drizzle of syrup on top for extra gusto. He put on some extra drizzle, and with a drizzle of wine. But we said in a hefsek that if it's from the place where they store the grasshoppers, the salty grasshoppers, so that's fine. They didn't drizzle it yet. So the Gemara says Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, Tanu Braysa, Chagovim, Akafresim, Akaflotos, Abam, and Otzer, and Hefsik, Minaspina, Mutar, grasshoppers, and kafresin and kaflotos, which are also types of grasshoppers, either cooked or pickled. That, and if they're cooked or pickled, there's no bishul akum. Rashi explains. You may bother by what about bishul akum? So Rashi says no, because grasshoppers can be eaten raw, nice and crunchy, eaten raw. So if they come from the storehouse or mina hefsik, which is what that was the Mishnah talking about, which is, it seems like it's not to the same degree as like a real storehouse, but it's just where they put it and they store it right away when they first make it. Uminasfina, and if it's from a boat, which the boat is transporting it, mutarin, it's mutter, because at that point in time we're not afraid that it was drizzled with wine. If it's sold in the marketplace in front of the storekeeper, asurin, then it's awesome. Then it's forbidden. Because he drizzles wine onto it. So too, apple wine of an anju. Apple wine in itself, that's not regular wine, that would be fine. There is no rabbinic decree against apple wine, but we are concerned it might have mixed in regular wine. So habon mina otzer umina hefsik umina slula, if it comes from the storehouse, or mina hefsik, which is where they store it right away when they make it, or from the slula. The Gemara uses the word slula over here, which is very interesting, because slula is really where we were saying is a problem. So I saw the Rashash actually changes the word slula. He changes it out for sfina, like before, a boat. That also, that if it comes from the storehouse or from the hefsik, they store it right away, or from the boat, or they're transporting it. Mutarin, it's mutar. We're not afraid he mixed in non-kosher wine at that point. But a nimkar b'katluza, if it's sold in the marketplace, also it's forbidden. Because we're afraid that he mixed wine into it. So therefore, at that stage it will be forbidden, but beforehand it will be fine. Okay. Tanu Rabbana. Tanu Braysa. Pam achas kosh Rabbi b'meya. One time Rabbi had a stomach ache. Amar klum yesh adam sheyodea yen tapuchim shalav od kilcham asar mutter. Is there anybody who knows whether apple wine is of a non-Jew is asar mutter, because he felt that it would help out his stomach ailments, help out his stomach problems, and so he wanted to know, does anyone know if it's asar mutter? Are we afraid that a non-Jew mixed in regular wine or not? Amar l'fanav Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi said, Pam achas kosh abba meyav. One time my father Rabbi Yossi, he also had a stomach issue. He also had a stomach problem. They brought in front of him the apple wine of a non-Jew that's 70 years old, really old, very, very fermented. The shasa, he drank it in Srapi and he was healed. He said, you already knew this and you're painting me? Should have told me earlier. Bodku matzo, so they checked it out and they found one non-Jew. 300, I don't know what garvi are exactly, barrels, it might be bigger than that, of wine, shel tapuchim, apple wine, shel ayin shana, 70 years old. The shalsa, he drank of it, his rabbi also was healed. Same thing happened. So next time, you know for yourself, next time you have a stomach virus, go find this 70-year-old apple wine. Good luck. So Amar, Rabbi Yehuda said, Baruch ha'makom shemasar olam l'shomer. Blessed is the makom, which the makom is referring to Hashem, who gave over his world to shomer, to watchmen. Now, what does this mean? So I saw that the Marsha has two explanations. The first explanation, which is probably the simpler explanation, is that this non-Jew was just holding on to this apple wine. He was guarding it. So Rabbi Yehuda is expressing that blessed is Hashem, who he had this person watching it for me. So, which is interesting. Like a lot of times, the Chovos HaLevavos actually talks about this. A lot of times, we were talking about apple wine, but a lot of times people have a lot of wealth, and it's really just they're just like watchmen for other people, for the wealth to end up in other people's possession. So, so he's saying, "Blessed is Hashem who gave it over to the watchmen." Marsha has a second explanation, though pretty interesting, which is that initially when Adam was in Gan Eden, he wasn't in charge of the fruits. He wasn't, the fruits weren't in his domain. He didn't have the full permission to make decisions what to do with it. But he was just a watchman pretty much on the Garden of Eden. But afterwards, after the sin, Hashem gave Adam full reins. So what you were just saying is that blessed is Hashem who gave over the world to the watchman, meaning the watchman of the Garden of Eden, which we could now go and make the apple wine, and that ended up healing me. Okay, v'chein letrumos. The last thing the Mishnah said so too for truma. So the Gemara wants to know what's that referring to? My v'chein letruma. What's this referring to? What does it mean in so too for truma? Rav Sheshes says v'chein lekohen achoshed limkor truma. So this the same halach applies to a kohen who's suspected to sell truma l'shem chulin as chulin. The front of Uda aser, only in front of him in the market. That's where it's aser. Aval above and oser, that which comes from the storehouse, umina hefsik, and from the temporary storehouse, minas lula, which again the Rashas changed to sfina from the boat mutter. That's mutter. That the halacha by truma is that only a kohen's allowed to eat truma. If someone who's not a kohen eats truma, he's chayav kares. He's not allowed to do it, and you're not allowed to eat truma. But if you have this kohen who he's suspected that he's selling truma as chulin, he's telling people it's chulin and selling it because he gets a lot of truma. He's not eating it; he wants to sell it. Truma is a lot cheaper than regular food because supply and demand. There's not so much demand for truma because it has a very limited customer base. So therefore, that's a lot cheaper. You say that's regular food, you'll get more money. So this kohen's suspected. So the Mishnah is telling us is that you only have to be worried when that which is in front of him in the marketplace. But that which is in the storehouse, even though it's his storehouse, you don't have to be concerned that he's giving it the wrong name yet. Because why? Because there are two same mirtas. He's afraid. He's afraid that the Rabbanu are going to hear and they're going to make me lose the whole thing. That which is in front of him is only a little bit. So if the Rabbanu get rid of it and they confiscate it from him, fine, it's not a big deal. They confiscate the entire warehouse. That's terrible. So therefore, he's afraid, and therefore he's not going to lie when it comes to the storehouse itself. Okay, Mazel Tov. Finish the parak. Parak. Okay. Okay, day. It's a new parak. So there's a new parak. Kolat Slomim. So now we're going to be talking about idols, like the Tractate is Avodah Zora. So Kolat Slomim. I'll give you a second. Okay. Kolat Slomim Asurim. All idols, all images are asur or forbidden because they're served once a year. So they're asur when it says asur when obviously they're forbidden to serve. What it means is Rashi explains that they're forbidden to get benefit from. For something which is worshipped is forbidden to get benefit from. So if it's served, so Rameir says that all images are asur to get benefit from because they're served once a year. But the Chum say no, Eno asur is only forbidden. Only that which it has in its hand a stick, or tzipor, or a bird, or kader, or a sphere. If it has these things, then that shows that this is a distinguished idol. This is some prestigious idol, and they definitely served it. Without this, we don't know if they served it, and you don't know if this won't be forbidden and getting benefit from. Shem Gamliel Omer, Af Kol Sheish B'Yodo Kol Davar. Has anything in its hand, there's anything in its hand, then we think that it's prestigious, then we definitely think they got served. If there's nothing in its hand, then he feels like the Chachamim that it won't be forbidden in getting benefit from. We don't think that got served. So the Gemara says, if they really got served once a year, it sounds like from our mayor that it got served once a year. And it doesn't sound like from the Chachamim that they're saying no, that they didn't serve it once a year. The Chum didn't say Chachamim Omrim Eno Nevad, it doesn't get served. Ella Mishesh Biyadon, unless it has in its hand these things. Rather, Chum just said Eno Osir, it's only forbidden. It sounds like they're agreeing with Rameir's premise. They're agreeing with this premise to get served once a year. But they're saying, despite the fact that they get served once a year, still it has to have these things in its hand to forbid it and gain benefit from. So the Gemara is bothered by is that if it gets served, then what's the pshat in the Rabbanon? Amar Rav Yisrael bar Yosef, Amar Rav Yochanan, in the place of Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Meir, they would serve it once a year. Rav Meir who he's concerned for a minority, Gazar Sharma Komos Atu Osu Makom, he made a decree of other places based on this place, and he said that even though in other places we don't know if it gets served once a year, in this place we know it gets served once a year, and even though that place is only one place and there are many other places in the world, but since he's concerned for a minority, therefore he makes a decree of other. He made a decree of other places because of that place, and said that everywhere, any image, even if you don't know if it got served once a year, even if it doesn't have anything in its hand, it's forbidden to get benefit from. But Rabbanan lo chayshin liyuta lo gazru shar makom osatu osu makom. The Rabbanan who are not concerned for a minority, they are only concerned for a majority. They're not concerned for a minority. They didn't make a decree of other places up to because of that place, and therefore they felt that okay, that place we know got served once a year, and that place I definitely agree to you, Rav Meir, that it would be forbidden to get benefit from any image there, even if it doesn't have anything in its hand. But not in that place. We don't know if it got served. And therefore, unless it has one of these items in his hand, the stick or the bird or the spear, which shows that definitely got served, then we would not make Xera. Omar of Yehuda, Omar Shmuel. The Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel that Ba'andarti Shamalachim Shanidu. That when this machlokas is recorded, this is only by the entranceway of the king, that the king would basically put an image of himself on the entryway so everyone would remember the king, look at the king. And Ramir says that's where Ramir says forbidden no matter what. Ramir says that for sure, because everyone of the chavivus of the king, everyone likes the king, they definitely bow down to it. But Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel says that past that, Ramir wouldn't say that if any image definitely got served. Amar Rabbi Barchan Rabbi Yochanan uva al Pesach Medina Sheni, that it's only when it's on the opening of the entranceway to the province. So that one, when you're coming in, it says, welcome to whatever country, and it has a picture of the king. So that one definitely got served. But even if it's a picture of someone else, you don't know for sure it got served. So we're very much limiting Ramir. But Rabbi Yehuda was limiting him to just the images of the kings. And Rabbi Yochanan is limiting just the entrance of the Medina, of the province. Okay, now we're going to 41a, going to the next page. Omer Rabba said, Machlokas b'shol kfar. This Machlokas Rameir and the Rabbanan Rishon Gamliel, this is only by villages. Aval b'shol kfarim, b'shol krachim, but by cities, divrei kol mutar. Everyone says it's mutar. My time, what's the reason? L'noy avdilu. It's just made for beautification. It's not made to be served. It's just made to be nice scenery in the city. It's not made to be bowed down to. The Gemara says, but 1 second, Rabbah is saying the machlokas is by kfarim, by villages, which means that he's saying that the chachamim and Rishon Gamliel are saying certain scenarios are really mutter if it doesn't have something in its hand, according to Rishon Gamliel, or according to chachamim, it doesn't have those specific items in its hand. But that means that they would say that there really is. It could be that it was for beautification even in a village, but that can't be. The kfarim vader and the If it's in a village, they're not trying to beautify the village. It was definitely made to bow down to. Can't be there's an opinion that says, you can't tell me there's an opinion that says that, it was really made for beautification even in the village. Rather, if it was a statement, this is what a statement. If Rabbah said such a thing, this is what Rabbah was saying. Omer Rabbah, machlokas b'shel krachim. The machlokas is only by cities. That Rameir says that it was made to bow down to, whereas the Chachamim will say without any identifying symbols, then we say that it was really made for beautification. But by village everyone agrees that's also. So if you want to say the Rabbah said a statement that everyone agreed in one case of cities or villages, it's not that everyone agrees that by cities it's okay. Rather, everyone agrees that by villages it's not okay. It definitely was made to bow down to. But by cities, that's where the machlokas is. Okay, the Gemara goes further. The Gemara says, the Chachamim say it's only also as a stick or a bird or a sphere in its hand. So Gemara explains, Makal, a stick sherudes atzmo tachas kol ha'olam kulo, that it rules or it's up under the whole world, kimakal, just like a stick. So Gemara is talking a little bit confusing terms. Rashi explains is that when the Gemara is describing what these things convey, what these items convey, the Gemara is talking in terms of gnai, in terms that degrade it, in degrading terms. So therefore, when it's saying like tachas kol is under the whole world, that's degrading. It means that it's the stick conveys the fact that it's like rules the whole world. But the Gemara is talking in degrading terms. So that's the stick. Sipor, the bird, shetoves etzatmo tachas kol kulo k'tzipor, that it holds itself, that it's under the whole world like a bird, which also it means that it's just like a bird that has like purview of the whole world. But the Gemara again is talking in degrading terms and saying that it's like holds itself under the whole world. Kador, the sphere, shetovis etzatmo tachas kol kulo kador, that it also holds itself under the whole world, just like a sphere, which again, I assume means is that just like the world is a sphere, so too this image is supposed to be conveying the fact that it has dominion over the whole world. But the Gemara is talking in degrading terms. It's Tana Bryce. So Sifu, and they add on to these items, Sayif, it's holding a sword, a Torah as a crown, the Tabaza has a ring. So the Gemara says, Sayif, May Karo Savor, Listin Ba'alma. So what changed? The Bryce is saying they added on these items. That means originally they didn't have these items. They added on these items. So the Gemara explains, Sayif, May Karo Savor, originally they thought Listin Ba'alma. It's just conveying that just like that's it's being a robber or an armed robber. Sof Savor are horigas atzmo tachas kolam kulo. To the end, they thought that it means that it's killing itself under the whole world, which again is degrading. I assume what it means is that it's showing that it has dominion to go and kill anything. Atara crown a kara savar gadol klilim alma. It's just like someone just made a nice crown idol with sof savar katar lamelach. It's like a crown for a king. Rashi actually, I'm sorry, I thought it was Rashi or someone else. Some people actually have the gears of Kelev, of dog, which to make it more degrading. I thought it was Rashi. Okay. Okay. Tabas, a ring, may karasavar shtaima ba'alma. Originally, they thought that it's just supposed to look like a messenger who's holding the signet of the person who's sending him. It's like he's signing the whole world to death, which again is supposed to convey power. It's supposed to convey power of this idol, and therefore we're concerned that therefore they added on later on that this would also be forbidden. Okay, let's hold here. Yashika.
The main government.
Yeah.
Has everything you just
really? Where does it have?